our meeting in order and opened as we have a full quorum. First item on our agenda this evening, the review and the acceptance of meeting minutes for the April 14th meeting. I had originally put on here a deferred till next session, but Megan did produce it. And we had a couple corrections, so we served that as well. I understand from Gary, he has one more minor update, which I can do before I send on. All right. Is there any discussion required on the meeting minutes from April 14th?
Not for me.
Chuck, good? Paul, are you good?
Oh, good. I'm good.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept and approve the meeting minutes from April 14th?
I so move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? None? Hearing, the meeting minutes from April 14th have been approved. Next item on the agenda is the updates from the Workstreams. We'll start with the interview team. If you will, let me start. I've written a couple notes for tonight's update anyway. We have one remaining officer or official from the town hall, and that is the treasurer collector. This coming Wednesday, the 30th, at 9 a.m., the interview team will meet with Liz and Clements and finish that final interview. So that will complete all of the officials, elected or appointed, as well as all the department managers. The boards, committees, and commissions, we have completed 12 of 25. The chairs for the remaining 13, 6 have responded, and we're in process of finalizing a date or have a date sometime in the next 5 weeks. So this is going out through May. 7 have not responded at all to an email invite. So I will be sending out another request to meet to those 7 chairs, and hopefully they will give us some sort of response.
Is it appropriate to know who they are?
I would make a motion that you disclose who they are.
I certainly can do that. I will do that to all of you offline.
Thank you.
Right.
Employees, we have completed all the employee interviews for all the departments. All of them. So that includes police, fire, DPW, light, water. Okay? All right. We also have completed 3 of the 4 candidates for the 3 select board positions that are coming up in the May election. We have interviewed Carol Riches. We have interviewed Peter Ogdar, and we have interviewed Chris Curtis. David Bloom has not yet accepted our invitation for an interview. We also have 4 other residents that have sent us a response. So in effect, we have interviewed 4 additional. So 6 total residents, including 2 of the 3 candidates for select board. David, anything additional you want to add for the interviews?
No, I think you summed that up nicely, and I appreciate the numbers and being spot on. I do want to just make a note for everybody listening that Gary and yourself perform very admirably at those things. Some of them can be prolonged. Sometimes I prolong them, but bottom line is that I'm looking forward to doing them, continuing to do them, and then coming back to do them with, and it's an enjoyable thing, and it's just really a nice job that you guys are doing.
Thank you. Gary?
I have a question,
Sure.
and I'm not challenging your numbers,
Okay.
but my memory has that I thought that the senior center has a part-time employee, not counting the executive director.
I think she is just that, and she only works like a day or two a week.
Okay, so,
What we would do, what I would recommend is we cover her as a resident.
okay.
But no, that's fair. All right, any other comments from you, Attorney Goldberg?
I think that the meetings have gone well. Some of the boards or committees have really been engaged. So I think we've learned a lot. We've learned things that we would never have known. And I think both the value potentially for rewriting the charter, but also just sharing that information at some point with the powers to be.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. And hopefully the vehicle is the observations and recommendations. Yep. And by the way, for those of you who have not participated, you ought to buy Gary a beer sometimes, because I understand he does a great imitation of me to open the interview process. Apparently, it's quite entertaining. I
Makes me
have not seen the performance, but I highly encourage you to buy him a beer and see if he will do it for you. All right. Next thing on the update from the Workstream. Updates from the Vice Chair.
Wow.
Mr. Vice Chair, how are we going with the Pre-Amble feedback summary?
Well, I want to say that the very first version of the preamble that I made, and this is the foundational document of a foundational document, so that's why I think we take a lot of time on that one. But I did a de minimis type of thing. And everybody, I want to thank everybody for all of their response. Everybody responded in a timely manner. Obviously, their responses showed that they had given great thought into what this was going to be. And it bodes well as we go through on and start talking about different potential articles and criteria and things like that. But I am in the process of reworking. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but I think the best way for me to present this to you guys, and we can use this as kind of an experimental thing for how we're going to work on the individual articles and sections, is I will have the minimalist one that I've already shared a copy with to Steve, and I will share a copy of that. That's the very minimalist one. You've seen it. It's just a little bit tweaked. And then Chuck particularly spent a lot of time on offering his thoughts, and I'm going to incorporate all of them into a second version. And then I'm going to do
That might be a little long.
well, and I will comment on that. But I looked at and immediately after reading, I read Chuck's twice because it was just so chock full of good suggestions. And I know that we've often spoken of how long the charter may be, and I think I started out at around 250 pages, and Steve's got it down to 50, but that's not going to happen. But I can do, I think I can do everything that Chuck and everything that Megan suggested. Gary, you're already in what I've done before, afterwards. So I mean, and Paul, same thing. But the bottom line is, I think it's worth spending some time. I will do a full, hefty, robust preamble containing things that particularly were pointed out as possible good content, and we'll see. We'll spend it around everybody, and ultimately, This can be a voting process or whatever, but I do feel that maybe the preamble should be a little bit longer than what it was originally proposed, because frankly, if we can get people energized by reading that, I'm not expecting everybody's going to want to read the entire charter, but they'll be able to find what they're looking for in the charter, because we will have done such a great job of organizing it and all that sort of thing. But I think the preamble should be somewhat entertaining and somewhat educational. And to do that in 25 words or less is probably not going to fulfill all of those things. So we'll just have to, take out another article or something somewhere along the line to keep it.
So will it be shorter than the Declaration of Independence?
No, but I'm thinking of using verbatim the preamble to the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
All kidding aside, I like your suggestion. I was a little concerned when Chuck said it's rather lengthy. I would rather err on the side of presenting it all, and we all look at it. To David's point, there's got to be some great ideas that we can pair and together work the verbiage. But I'd rather do that than feel restricted that we can't present a good idea that should be contained there, and we've restricted ourselves because we have this in our head that it's got to be 25 words. I think that is the wrong approach. So that's my opinion.
No, it's good to start out with a 25 word or, whatever, but then let's add on to it. I mean, this is an important document,
Yep.
I got a feeling that if we do a good enough job on this, it may become a model charter for the rest of the state,
Who knows?
Everybody be asking for our autograph.
Okay. So with that, I think, David, you've covered 1 and 2, right? Because you also talked about where we are in the update.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about item 3. Now, this was something that, DJ, you brought up to me, and I'd kind of like you, if you would please, to kind of give some background on to how you presented that to me, and, so we're all on the same page.
Well, it was something I did early in the morning when no.
You too, huh?
And I will tell you that, quite frankly, the first question that comes to my mind as we pour through all the different materials that are out there and that we've talked about briefly is the fact that we keep talking about the new charter. And you have heard me say many a times, I don't think we have a charter. We have something that is being used as a charter, and it's performing the function of the charter, but it's not a charter. It's not a charter because it's not complete. It's not a charter because it doesn't say it's a charter, and it's whatever. So with respect to just calling what we are, Charter Review Committee, we're reviewing a charter or not? I don't know. We're reviewing the contents, and we've come to a conclusion that there's a lot of stuff in there that maybe needs to be clarified, but there's a tremendous amount of stuff that needs to be added. But before we can actually get to the point of saying we are a charter review committee, or charter revision committee, or charter, grading committee, we kind of really got to settle the question, perhaps in a formal way, by determining whether or not, as a matter of law in the eyes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we have a charter or not. If we don't have a charter, then we can clearly say we want to make a charter. And if they say, no, you do have a charter, then we can say, okay, we'll amend it, because there's 2 different ways you write the bill. That would be presented to the legislature and ultimately to town meeting, and then hopefully from there to the legislature. So the way to do that, there is a very interesting position in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts called the Commonwealth Archivist. That is a department head, and that department head has official copies of everything that the government of Massachusetts has done. And that includes everything that all of the subdivisions, the towns and cities, and whatever. And I've noticed in reading some of the changes or updates to other people's charter, other towns' charters, that they all talk about, to amend section 4 of the charter as on file with the Archivist of the Commonwealth. So I propose, and I don't know how we should do that, maybe that's for discussion, but we contact by letter or phone the archivist and find out, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts opinion, does Paxton have a charter or does it not have a charter? That way we can go forward, maybe ask for a revision of what our committee name is, if necessary, or, and have a better idea how to proceed. And that'll ducktail into a little bit of the next item there too, Home Rule versus Special Act. So that's my thoughts on it. Does anybody have any questions for me on that?
Yeah, so I have a question, just really in principle, clearly, since 2013, people in the town or the town itself has been under the impression that they have a charter. I mean, the head of the document that we started with is an act relative to the form of government in the town of Paxton, which is basically, what's incorporated in a charter. Regardless of the fact that it doesn't have a name, the word charter is not in it. What's the difference in reality?
Well, wait, let's assume then, just for purposes of, and again, just because it says an act for the form of government does
Yeah.
not necessarily mean it's a charter. But if we talk about having to amend the charter, we have to write, and I know that statutory development is not taught in law school very well, but the bottom line of it is, we would have to say, in every single thing that we do to change the charter as it exists, we would have to make a statement saying, that instead of just defining what we're going to define, like a section that talks about removal from office, or a section that talks about how many people can have, how many committees a person can be on before they, have to say, hey, enough is enough. To do that in what we do, we have to add specifically, we have to take a document that is, if it is a charter, it's, something we might want to say, we repeal the charter that exists and we start from scratch. Or we can go in and start doing the fine-tooth combing and saying, Section 1 of Article 8 in the charter so appears, blah, 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 and go that route. And that's going to be a statutory nightmare, because the document itself is missing. We can't amend a section that has to do with something that doesn't exist in the...
Yeah.
So the Commonwealth of the Archivist.
Yes.
All right, so can I suggest for time boxing this, which is a great discussion, not suggesting it's not. Why don't you go off and find what means it has to be, please, to reach out and contact and see if, in the eyes of the archivist, does Paxton have a charter? Would that position agree Paxton has an existing charter? Because it sounds like that answers the ultimate question, yes?
Yes.
And then defines how we are to proceed.
Yes.
So you do realize that it's hard for me to stop talking for a moment, being an attorney.
I don't have that problem.
And knowing the topic for a second. One, we know that there was an audit done in 2006 which talked about that we need a charter.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there was a selectman that we spoke to over the past week who was in the process of creating that document, referring to it as a charter.
Yes.
So we have a history of the fact that, it was recommended that we have one, and the person who was involved in doing it. So the
Right.
fact that it may not meet the requirements, I'm not sure it really makes a difference, except as to what you call a repeal or to revise. But I think the intent at the time was to have a charter.
Oh, agreed. From the position of the town,
Yeah.
it's very clear.
But the
My-
mens rea, Gary, is not the same thing, okay? Somebody may have thought they were doing a charter, but they maybe didn't tick off enough boxes, is what I'm
I
gonna say.
think we need clarity from the state, from the Commonwealth,
Yeah.
on what they view as the official position of that document. And as soon as we get that, we have a clarity.
And I say that just for example, just to prolong the discussion a little bit more, but if you go in any of the official databases of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you will, and try to do like a Google search, Town of Paxton, Massachusetts Charter, the only thing you get is is a response, is the website for the town, which lists things that are what we are calling the charter, or what might be the charter. The official Commonwealth documentation that you find when you go to different databases of the state, if you search Paxton Charter, you don't find any, you don't get a response. No results found.
So basically, what I'm hearing, though, is it's kind of academic in terms of internally in town. People think we have a charter.
Yep.
We have a document that's functioning like a charter. Whether or not it's a charter, internally, it doesn't really matter. We have something, we're redoing it.
Yeah.
Where it matters is the steps we have to take to replace it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
because ideally, we want to be in the position where we want to say, hey, we want to take this new thing we have and replace the old thing we have.
Yes.
Correct.
But to
Do
do
we
that,
only
we
do
have to.
that if it's a charter? or-
To do, if it is a charter, we have to either repeal it, all right, totally. Then we wouldn't have a charter.
But we would replace it right away, wouldn't we?
Well, two things will happen. You have to go get, you can't replace something until you've,
Yeah.
repealed the old one. So there is a period of time potentially where the legislature repeals it. It's easy to repeal something
Yeah.
and then to start, But the way you have to do it, I mean, if we're going to take that as a charter and start out with it as a charter and start adding it in the statutory construction kind of language that has to be in there, we're not gonna do it in 250 pages.
Okay, all right. Charter approval process, again, there's no sense in discussing that until we have a clarity around the official status of the existing document in the eyes of the Commonwealth. But suffice to say, and we can have this as a further discussion later on,
Please.
Home rule versus special act. Special act was what was used to make this document in the eyes of the town of Paxton official versus a home rule. And again, if we can get clarity around the process associated with both of them, we certainly can have that discussion as well. What I'd like to really focus on, and David, I'd like you to kind of start us off, is the review process for the draft. As you're aware, 3 of us are going to be working on that new draft. David, Paul, and myself. Once we feel, the 3 of us, that we have done our own internal review and are comfortable with presenting a content, and you notice I said content, I didn't say the entire charter, I said content. We want to review it in a group setting. Now, the logistics of that is what I'd like to talk about. David has suggested in a conversation with me an article-by-article review.
Yes.
Okay? I'll stop and say, in his eyes, because I believe you've passed out the table.
Table of
A
contents,
sample of table of contents, right? Or an article would suggest to be like the whole executive branch.
Right.
Right. So there are a number of articles under that section. Is that what you're proposing? And why don't you give a foundation, what your reasoning behind it, what you're thinking, and how we would want to go about doing that?
Well, I think the idea of 3 of us getting together and, chewing the different things. I mean, somebody will set up a proposal. I'll do a draft, say, for instance, and pass it on to Paul and to Steve. And the 3 of us will get together and we'll, after we've gone through it all, we'll figure out, hey, we might not want to do this, or do we want to do this? Some of the documentation, the sections will be relatively, there will be a board, so Paxton is going to remain a body politic. That's just language. We aren't going to have much debate about that. And it's going to be within the geographical boundaries that have been established, and any that may be established if we, somehow acquire land in Rutland or something like that. But the bottom line is, it's easiest to do that because that's the first, if you will, pigeonhole that we have to talk about. If we, Paul goes out and Steve goes out and I go out and we write up a charter, a section in the charter, well, then we gotta try to meld it all together. I think it's better for us to have a talk about what we wanna put in that section, and then get it ready, and then go back with it, section one, and have the rest of the group, as has been said several times, chew the dog food to figure out if we've got it or don't have it. There are a lot of questions that are, I think, going to be questions that we may need answered before we even try to write an article about certain things, because we have to know, what the board is going to say when we present something to them, and it doesn't make sense for us to write up a charter with something that the select board is not going to be interested in us doing or recommending. So we've got to deal with some of our recommendations first as well. And that will have to do with, again, some of the things that we have seen that may need to be changed.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're suggesting is once we finish the interviews, what would make sense prior to us starting to begin authoring any section of the new charter would be to individually meet with each of the select board members and review the recommendations, observations, getting their buy-in or their response
Right.
to deem what would be appropriate to include in the charter and not.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Just as an example, for instance, pick any elected position, okay? And one of the questions that might come out is, this elected position, I don't know if we have a
Tree warden.
tree warden, there's one. Tree warden is elected. Does everybody think that we should elect a tree warden and have that whole process? Or should a tree warden be an entity that is an appointment made by either the Board of Selectmen or the town administrator?
And if it's elected or if it's appointed position, does it belong under DPW, which honestly, everything else associated with the trees is under DPW? That would be a recommendation that would make sense.
But if the select board said, no, we like the idea of having an elected tree warden who's got nothing else to do with in the town, or whatever, can be somebody from the town. The same thing is about emergency services. We have a police department, okay, we have a fire department, we have an EMS department, the fire and EMS all together, but then we also have this, emergency management thing. We're going to start thinking about defining that a little bit more. So before we get into the weeds on some of these articles, we really need to get together and focus on,
So let me-
what are we going to get from the selectmen? And we want to be working towards something that they will want.
So I'm going to ask a question.
Yep.
So put aside the drafting for a moment.
Okay?
We have our ideas and concepts and recommendations, et cetera. I don't know as a group that we have bantered about all the different potential changes that we may be recommending, and where does the entire group really stand on those?
Right.
So if we come up with a diverse list of all those changes, 1 through 50, whatever it is, including the example of being the tree warden, I think as a group, we have that level of conversation. That may be an entire meeting or two.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then we go back to the drafting at that point in time.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I would suggest that meeting has to occur before even the one-on-one with each of the.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree. Yeah.
Because we want to go
And-
to I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We want to go to the selectmen saying, the group has researched, we've talked to people. This is what we suggest. We recommend that the tree warden,
Yeah.
you know, and.
Now, the logistics of getting this done, because I don't believe that when we have the discussion around the recommendations and observations, that since they are not to be made public unless they're in the charter and eventually distributed, the review of said, just like the article by article, there has to be a logistics position set that we can do so almost in an executive session. In other words, not recorded, no public, but a working session. And what I will do is find out the logistics for that to make that happen, because that's what needs to happen. Not that we don't want the public, opinion. My point is, we've already solicited it.
Right.
And we have to go through the correct logistics process and procedures to make that a reality.
So can we hear from Chuck and Paul as to what their perspective is about that whole process?
Absolutely.
You guys are on board with that approach?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, for us to, I mean, I've gone through the notes and kind of read, the individual results of the surveys, that you've put, but, a chance for us to discuss and exactly come up with, our thoughts about the recommendations so that we can stand behind them when we take them to the next step, and we're all on the same page about why we're advocating for the changes we're making.
See, if we were the Supreme Court, we'd want to be 9-0 in terms
Not a
of,
split decision.
as opposed to having a minority decision or, concurrent part and all.
Mr.
That's
Putney,
a-
any question or any statement you wish to
No,
make?
no, that makes sense to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good. All right, I think unless anybody has any questions, that's our updates from the vice chair. All
Thank you.
right. Updates from the communication workstream. I'm going to lead it off and ask Chuck to help here as well. The newsletter, believe it or not, is ready. It looks fantastic. There will be a number of copies that I've asked the town hall to print and will be available tonight. So for all of the public and other people that are here tonight, they will get a copy of the newsletter. We will also have a newsletter available for Paxton Days, which is on June 14th. And I'll talk a little bit about the logistics of that under new business, because we have some things we have to discuss there. But you all have given great feedback. I think it's something we all can be very, very proud of. I think it's, Chuck and Megan did an outstanding job for content, and Gary laid the foundation with his first draft, so I think it's great. Anybody have anything else or want to
Well,
add around?
The end result is truly amazing, both the layout
Yep,
as well as the content. So applause all around.
that's
It was very good
applause
job.
to Chuck and Megan, who
Very
did
good
an
job.
outstanding job. All right. Suggestion box. Mr. Paul, any update on that, young man?
I've given it some consideration.
Okay,
I'm curious about the timeline. I want to know when this would be, want to be put into use. I only bring that up because I've given a tour of I've looked through my basement, I've looked through my shop, all my places with my wood storage. And I don't have if I'm going to do this, I want to do it well and not just, have some scrap boards or some pine or something. I'd like to, take my time and do it right.
right.
But I don't have, a lot of great material right now to do that.
Okay.
I have looked at Staples, and I can also, get a generic suggestion box for under $20, and, that would be quick and easy. So I'm just trying to decide, the time and energy and timeline most important about, when this would be required.
I believe the most prudent thing for us to do, and you guys chime in here, this is my opinion. I would think post June 16th, which is the night of the town meeting, where there are gonna be flyers sent out to a bunch more people or handed out. There's gonna be a lot of exposure in the town at that point, well beyond what we'll have generically or, just through the normal day-to-day process, as well as Paxton days. I think more people show up for the town hall for the town hall meeting rather, just than they do for Paxton days, right? So that would be my recommendation. And I think one location, John will get to you. We have something on the agenda where we're gonna ask you to speak. Yeah, you big guy. In a minute. Anyway, does that help?
That helps. So then that helps me kind of think about it. So I'll still
All right.
working on it, and if it seems
And
like
let
it's
me
going to be
know
too
if
much.
let me know if there's any expense. We will run it through supplies through town hall and
Sure.
do what we need to do, okay?
Great, thank you.
And there is a Dropbox right now in the interim where people can drop off in front of the town hall. There's a Dropbox for a variety of things. So the way the newsletter says, we just say dropped off in the Dropbox in town hall. So like, it's not urgent, and there's an interim solution.
Sure.
So that if people can always drop it off there for now. But it will be a nice reminder. The more Dropboxes we have, it's just kind of a reminder of our presence too.
Yep.
Correct,
But
correct. And in fact, thank you. Chuck, on the back of, as you guys are aware, you have the scan where people can actually
A large piece of
scan the document and make comments.
value to. Sure.
And if they'd like to, rather than that, just put it in a Dropbox, we're targeting, and Chuck's working with Lori and the people at Town Hall to make that a reality. All right? All right. Now that this has been completed, when we use this as a foundation, we will send this document to the two editors of the Paxton News and the Landmark, pushing for them to publish as a letter to the editor for those two periodicals. As yet, I don't have a date, but I promise by next meeting, which is the second Monday in May, and you'll be seeing that invitation from me soon, at 5:45 here. I will have an update regarding that, the fact that they have been sent, and then hopefully we have a response from both editors by that time. All right? Final update around communications Workstream is the Ken Cleveland interview. Ken Cleveland, as you remember, is the beat writer for the Worcester Telegram and Gazette. Megan and I are meeting him on the 12th of May to, in effect, give him an interview. All right? And we will make sure we give him a copy of this so that he can write his article and submit it to his editor. We will also then have Mr. Cleveland give us an idea. Once he has that submission to the editor and a response, we'll get an idea as to when that will become a publication. Ken has also committed to us that he will periodically come back to us for updates. So this is not going to be a one-time shot. Nor, frankly, is it going to be a one-time shot for the two publications I talked to about letters to the editor. We have defined this as our May newsletter, and which subsequently suggests that there will be additional newsletters, which of course there will be, right, in the upcoming months and year. All right.
We should probably send that to the archivist, a copy.
Select Board update is tonight. Couple things for that. I've asked that the new newsletter, we have 100 copies, and that Donna's going to bring it by this evening, before the Select Board meeting. Chuck has been kind enough to print off these, and for the three selectmen, I hope all three are here tonight, I will make sure they get this copy. I will ask that those that can help distribute to the audience the remaining black and white copies that Don is producing. Once we get to that point within the presentation, right, when we do the communications update. So if you all would help with that, I would greatly appreciate that. All right? Any questions, concerns?
We didn't agree yet, right?
Huh?
We haven't agreed yet to do that yet.
Well, I saw two of the three of you shake your head. If Gary, actually three or four of you, if Gary, you want to abstain, that's fine.
No, it's okay.
We will remember.
I didn't know if a motion was
You've heard
required.
of the committee draft rule, haven't you?
All right. You all have seen the presentation. You all are comfortable with it. I think we have a great story to tell, and I think the update is going to be greatly received. I did, to Gary's earlier comment, send out an email inviting everyone that we've talked to, every department head, every official, asking them to send it to their staffs, to their boards, committees, and commissions. I asked them to do that, and they have in many cases, so I hope we get a nice turnout. If not in person, certainly online. When we met with the Cable and Communications Committee earlier last week, we discovered that in a couple of previous meetings, we've had 30 people dial in, and we had 50-some people dial in. Now, I don't know the basis for that, or those numbers, but I was told they had the statistics relative to their system, and so we're getting a good amount of exposure relative to that process. So I share that with you. Okay? Any questions, comments? All right. New business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring up or discuss? I have two items I'd like to discuss, if I may. Anybody else have any new business they want to bring up?
No.
All right. 14th of June is Paxton Days. It's a Saturday. Typically it lasts 4 to 6 hours, I think, somewhere along that line. It happens to be my wife's 75th birthday weekend, and I have out-of-town family. However, I am committed to being there. I will bring 2 chairs and a table for setup. I've already submitted the paperwork for us to officially have a presence at Paxton Days Fair. We will have a number of copies of the newsletter. I'll also see what we can do around snicks or snacks or something. I mean, food always draws people to a specific table or booth. I don't believe we have the ability to get any kind of trinkets, although that would be nice. But the reality is, I would like you guys to think about your participation, if you can, that day, even for an hour or two. If you could come and be there, it would be greatly appreciated, and we can work out a schedule over the next committee meeting or two and make sure we finalize that. All right? The other item of new business, on the 16th of June is the town meeting, where budgets, zoning, et cetera, are all going to be discussed at Ignacia, and as well as approved or rejected. We are planning on having at the table outside the auditorium at the Anna Maria College a number of copies of the newsletter, and we will ensure that, working with the town moderator and the town clerk, that we have something on the big display screen as people walk in, encouraging them to pick up a newsletter and, and read it and take it home. I cannot be there that night. I will be out of town. Originally, I did not think this was going to be an issue because I thought we were doing the town meeting in May like we always do. However, the 16th through the 23rd, I am out of state on a family trip, and I cannot change it. So I'm giving you all fair warning, I will not be there that evening. All right? That's just an FYI. I'm sure some or all of you will certainly be there in some capacity to vote, to voice your opinion, etc., but I cannot be there. So I wanted to alert you to that fact.
Well, you weren't going to be given any presentation.
Correct. There's no presentation by our committee there that night at all. We are not asked to speak at all.
Steve, can I make one comment?
Sure.
One thing that I noticed caused a little bit of, I won't say anger, but, negative comments from the last special town meeting where there was a package being handed out, was that they ran out of them really early. So a lot of people coming through, as you probably all recall, it took a while to get everybody in there and stuff. But, so I think we better err on the side of caution that we have. I mean, I intend to be there, and I'll be at Paxton days as well, but we'll talk about that for a minute. But I don't want to be, I wouldn't mind sitting at a table handing that out. There's a little politicking to be done with it anyway. I mean, it's not presentation, but what is this? And, But if we run out of them,
No, we are going to print at least a couple to 300
Okay.
copies. We will make sure we have enough. Okay. What I hope doesn't happen is people walking back to the car that they find them on the ground out in the parking lot because people just threw them away.
Well,
But that's something we can't control, but the real is,
we should put a lottery, and winning number, and we'll
anyway.
So on Saturday, I can be there,
All right,
but May 12th is our next meeting.
mm-hmm,
I am unable to attend.
okay. All right, so when I send out the invite, just please respond
Yes,
accordingly. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Any other new business? All right, any old business to discuss?
Just from a time standpoint, I know we have broken down our efforts into really 3 areas. We're still in this information gathering stage. Once we start the drafting stage, I'm expecting that will take a few months of our collective times.
Yes.
So I'm just putting it into a perspective. I may have shared it with you before, is that we're going to meet with these groups again, and there's going to be a relatively short amount of time for us to be able to do that. So I'm just throwing it out there that we may want to get on someone's calendars earlier than later, knowing that we're going to be down to like a few months as opposed to 6 months.
Agreed. Understood. Okay. Good comment. All right. Anything else? All right. We actually have some time. We have 10 minutes left. Public session. John, welcome.
Hello, John Slavish, I live in town.
John is on the Cable and Communications Committee, and we had an excellent conversation with him when we met this past week. So, John, welcome. Anything you want to add or say to the
No,
committee?
but I just want to put a feather in your cap. This communication thing, good job. Wish you'd share it with the other committees in town. No, seriously, I mean.
We have.
You said, okay, I don't know what their comment was. I like your timetable, and it looks like you shrank it. Pretty proud of you guys because it seems to be as you know, last November, the planning board was, I think they said 2 years to come up with what they were putting before the town, and that presentation was terrible, and that's why they didn't get anything out of it. So I think I think shrinking the schedule is good, and keeping an eye on that goal. I really appreciate it.
John, thank you. Thank you for coming. John also recommended as one of the things that we engage our state representative, right, in supporting our efforts.
Yes.
Yeah, so we will certainly see if we can follow up on that. That's a great suggestion.
And it's good that we do that early rather than later, because
Correct.
ultimately our goal is to get it to the legislature. And if, have these legislators from our district, senator and representatives, to, carry the flag to get it passed.
Yeah. I guess I want to put them on the spot for one thing.
Yeah.
There's a
It'll
lot.
also bode well, I
There's,
think.
there's a lot of there's a lot coming out of the legislature which affects us terribly as a town, whether you agree with rezoning or we disagree with rezoning or whatever. When the state is going to start mandating this stuff, when these people are like at your meeting, we got access to them if they haven't gotten the message yet. All right, I granted that's not your job, but we have to get them involved into our town so that they finally hear some of the things that are going on, like this here. I really think somebody had been here for this meeting just to see how efficiently it can be done. And, so if it could happen, it'd be great.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Plus, honestly, if we get a state representative, it carries weight with the residents as well, because they're engaged, so. All right. Is there anything else we need to bring up? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting of the Charter Review Committee is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.